You know, Prime Minister Modi was here just recently, and we've always been very good friends. India is one of the highest tariffing nations in the world. You know that. I know. Thank you for shaking your head, but it's brutal. It's brutal. They're very smart, and he's a very smart man and a great friend of mine, actually. And we had very good talks. I think it's going to work out very well between India and our country. Very, very well. And I want to say you have a great prime minister.
Is, again, responding to the fact that Canada has been ripping off the United States of America and hardworking Americans for decades. If you look at the rates of tariffs across the board that Canadians have been imposing on the American people and our workers here, it is egregious. In fact, I have a handy-dandy chart here that shows not just Canada, but the rate of tariffs across the board. If you look at Canada, since you brought it up, American cheese and butter, nearly 300% tariff. You look at India, 150% tariff on American alcohol. You think that's helping Kentucky bourbon be exported into India? I don't think so. 100% tariff on agricultural products from India. Look at Japan, tariffing rice, 700%. President Trump believes in reciprocity, and it is about dang time that we have a president who actually looks out for the interests of American businesses and workers. And all he's asking for at the end of the day are fair and balanced trade practices, and unfortunately, Canada has not been treating us very fairly at all over the past several
years. With the United States set to implement reciprocal tariffs on the 2nd of April, India has made significant progress in its trade talks with the US, agreeing to the terms of reference for a bilateral trade agreement, also known as a BTA, after intervention from the Indian Prime Minister's office. This agreement framework was finalized just a day before the tariffs are set to kick in, marking a pivotal moment in the ongoing trade negotiations between the United States and India. The TOR outlines the structure of the trade deal and generally requires the approval of top political leadership before official talks can commence. A senior government official revealed to the Indian Express that the PMO is pushing for a swift finalization of the deal, underscoring its importance. The official said the PMO is keen on a swift finalization of this deal. The finalization of the TOR has been pending as of Saturday when US negotiators concluded a 4-day visit to India. Now, both the countries are prepared for formal negotiations where India is expected to lower tariffs on US imports in exchange for concessions from the United States, according to the government official. But of course, the big question remains, is India ready to tackle Trump's Liberation Day tariffs? We explain. US President Donald Trump has hinted that India could be poised to make significant tariff cuts, a move that could provide some relief from the sweeping tariffs imposed by the United States. At a press briefing at the White House, he said, and I quote, "I heard that India is going to be dropping its tariffs substantially. A lot of countries are going to drop their tariffs."
I think they have a chance of doing better, actually, with the tariffs. It can actually help them in a certain way. And I think a lot of them will drop their tariffs because, you know, they've been unfairly tariffing the United States for years. And if you look at the European Union on cars, the European Union already dropped their tariff down to 2.5%. It was announced a couple of days ago, which is what which is a very small tariff. The United States charged very little. And I think I heard that India just a little while ago is going to be dropping its tariffs very substantially. And I said, why didn't somebody do this a long time ago? A lot of countries are going to be dropping their tariffs.
This marks a potential turning point for India, which has long been facing pressure from Washington to open up its markets. As the US-India trade talks continue, the US Trade Representative, that is the USTR, has issued a report, Foreign Trade Barriers, which highlights a range of trade concerns with India. The USTR report covers a wide array of issues, from India's internet shutdowns that disrupt commerce to strict regulations on dairy feed and the importation of genetically modified foods. One of the most significant criticisms in the report focuses on India's dairy industry, specifically regulations that require dairy products to be derived from animals that haven't consumed certain types of feed, such as blood meal. The USTR claims that these regulations lack a clear health or safety justification and are detrimental to trade. Similarly, there are intellectual property concerns. The USTR also raised concerns over India's intellectual property practices, including long patent approval waiting periods and a lack of protection for trade secrets. India has been placed on the United States priority watch list due to inconsistent progress on IP issues. US officials are especially concerned about the lack of laws protecting trade secrets and delays in patent granting processes. Additionally, India's treatment of online copyright piracy and its statutory licensing practices have been flagged as areas needing reforms. The report reiterated long-standing US concerns over India's agricultural support programs, which the US argues distorts markets. It also highlighted India's restrictions on pulse imports and criticized the opaque nature of these regulations. Another major point of contention is India's slow and politically influenced approval process for biotechnology regarding genetically modified products. The USTR's report also pointed out that India's Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, that is the FSSAI, is still in the process of finalizing regulations for genetically engineered products, even though the law was passed way back in 2006. This slow, opaque approval process, according to the USTR, undermines scientific trade-based processes. Moving on, the US has also raised concerns about India's data localization requirements, which mandate that all payment-related data for Indian citizens be stored on servers within India. Introduced by the RBI in 2018, the rule has been criticized by foreign companies, which argue that it hampers their ability to detect fraud and maintain secure global networks. The US is also pushing for India to adopt a more open satellite policy. Currently, the US is encouraging India to allow more flexibility for consumers in choosing satellite capacity providers, which could potentially open up the market for foreign companies like Elon Musk's Starlink satellite service. Of course, one of the major sticking points in the ongoing trade negotiations is India's high applied tariffs on several key imports, including vegetable oils, motorcycles, automobiles, and agricultural products. The USTR has criticized the unpredictability of India's tariff system, particularly because there is a wide gap between the country's WTO bound rates and the actual tariffs applied. This creates uncertainty for US businesses that want to access the Indian market. The US has voiced its concerns about the inconsistency in India's tariff practices, noting that the Indian government can adjust tariffs at will, which leads to an unpredictable trading environment. As Delhi and Washington approach a critical phase in their trade talks, both sides are bracing for what could be a significant shift in their trade relationship. The agreement to move forward with the BTA terms is a positive development, but much remains to be seen regarding the specific concessions both sides will make. With Donald Trump planning to impose Liberation Day tariffs on the 2nd of April, India's willingness to engage in trade reform will be tested in the coming days. How both the countries address issues such as tariffs, intellectual property, agriculture, and digital trade will determine the trajectory of their bilateral trade deal. As the deadline looms, the world watches to see whether a comprehensive and mutually beneficial deal will emerge from this tense standoff.